Hello there guys, it's me Unstable Voltage. I don't normally do unboxing videos, but I thought I'd make a little bit of an exception this time around because I've just gone and got myself a new mouse. It's long overdue because I've been using my current mouse for a couple of years now, probably actually closer to 3. The mouse that I have been using is the Cyborg Rat7, which is this thing here, which is currently still plugged in, so I can't really get it in front of the camera because the cable's connected to everything. And I've had this mouse for a few years, and it's generally been a very good mouse. I've enjoyed it. It has worked well. It's served me well. But it's got quite a lot of features and things on it that I don't really use. Some of the things on it were quite nice. It has a little DPS rocker switch here behind the scroll wheel, which is fantastic because you can assign 4 different DPI settings, and you can assign them in the software, and then you can just switch between them on the fly. That's quite useful. You've also got this little thumb button on the side, which you can use to reduce the DPI by a certain percentage. That's ideal if you're playing FPS games, and maybe you've got quite a high DPI sensitivity because you want to be able to turn quite fast, but then maybe you're using like a sniper scope and you want really slow movement because you want the precision. So all you have to do then is hold down that button, and that will slow down the DPI and allow you to aim better, which was quite a nice feature. It's got a couple of things on there as well which I never really used. It's got this sort of horizontal scroll wheel which goes from side to side, as opposed to the middle wheel which goes up and down. Never really found a use for that for anything, to be quite honest. Got a couple of extra thumb buttons on the side, which are one of the things that I love about most mice, the extra button functionality, but that's something that I'm going to talk about in a minute, although this isn't the focus of the video. Braided cable. One of the main things with this Rat7 mouse is that it was fully customizable. In the base of the mouse, you've actually got this little thing that you can unwind right here, and that has like what is essentially an Allen key in there. And if you unscrew the entire bottom of the mouse, the back part comes out and there's a series of weights. Now I've got all of the weights that it comes with inside here at the moment, and it still isn't really heavy enough for me. But the reason it has this Allen key is it allows you to make certain adjustments. So for example, you can turn this screw here at the back and it will adjust the thumb rest and open and close it, so you can actually change the angle. Useful for people with big hands. I have fairly big hands. I mean, they're not like massive gorilla hands, but they're getting close. And for me, that mouse is a good fit. It's a decent size. You can adjust the palm rest, which actually has a little button that you can just click and remove the palm rest completely. And you can then just slot that back on. And you've got various different sort of notches that you can put it on, so you can adjust just how far it sticks out. So it's been a really good mouse, but there's been a couple of problems that it's had which have basically made me come to decide that it's time to get a new mouse. Not only that, of course, with that one, but it also comes with this nice little tin, and you know, nice tins are nice tins. And within this tin, if I can actually get it open, it comes with a variety of different palm rests and different pinky rests as well as the little box to put any of the extra weights in. So nice little thing, but I find with this mouse, it's one of those things that once you've actually got it set up and got it right for your hand, you're never going to mess around with it again. In the 3 years I've had this mouse, apart from the initial setup, I haven't messed around with any of the settings. I haven't needed to adjust anything with it. But there's been a few things with it that have put me off. The first thing that went wrong with this mouse was these 2 thumb switches, which I use an awful lot, mainly if I'm using things like TeamSpeak and stuff like that, because what I tend to do is use those as my push-to-talk button, and also setting them to be able to record and that kind of thing. First problem from when I very first had this mouse was if you push those buttons slightly too hard, it would cut out. So you could push the button so hard, I mean, you didn't have to put a lot of pressure on it, but if you push the button slightly too hard, it would think that that you weren't pressing the button and it would cut out. So you had to get used to that. And then after that, probably developed just a few months later, the buttons actually became intermittently responsive. So sometimes when you would press them, they wouldn't work at all. And they've now got to the point several years down the line that they barely register at all. So the actual, the inner switches, because I think they're just membrane switches, they're not mechanical, they wore out very, very quickly. And that's quite bad for a mouse, especially a mouse like this, which I think was probably about 70 or 80 pounds at the time I bought it, which would have been about $100. The second problem that it had, first of all, one of the pads has come off on the bottom, one of the little sticky feet pads there, so it catches on the mouse mat a little bit, which is a little bit annoying, although that's not one of the main issues. I can sort of live without that. It's very difficult to clean because, as you can see, it's such a weird shape because it looks like a it's like a Decepticon almost. It's all in bits and pieces. The dust gets in everywhere, and it's very, very difficult to clean unless you've got something like a Q-tip or something to get in there. But for the actual problems, the second problem that it's developed is the middle button, the button on the mouse wheel. Sometimes when you press that button, it actually detects a double click or sometimes even a triple click. And I've experimented with clicking it more slowly, clicking it more quickly, made sure that I've not actually scrolled the wheel as I've been clicking, and it just seems to do it randomly. Very, very annoying if you're using the middle mouse button like I do in browsers on a hyperlink to open it in a new tab, because you'll go to a link, you'll hit the middle mouse button and it'll open 3 tabs with the same link. So that's one of the things that's annoyed me. And the third major problem that it's had is this mouse actually has independent DPI. So you can set the horizontal DPI separately to the vertical DPI, which is great because it means you've got more customization over the mouse. But the problem is sometimes one of the sensors drops out. I'll very often be playing and all of a sudden my mouse will decide it doesn't want to go left and right anymore, but it'll still go up and down. Or the opposite will happen. It won't go up and down, but it'll still go left and right. If you're a regular to my channel and you've watched any of my videos, you'll probably have seen a few where I have complained where all of a sudden in the middle of playing my mouse just stops moving in one particular axis, and that's been really annoying. So I thought enough's enough. It's got enough problems. It's time to get a new mouse. Let's see what we can get. Didn't really want to go back to a cyborg. There's a lot of variations of that now. I mean, this is the RAT7. There's the RAT9, which is the same, but it's the cordless version. There was a MMO version that had like 1 million buttons on it and 16 million different colours that you could assign with the LEDs and all that kind of stuff. But I decided this time around to go for a Corsair mouse. Now, I haven't really used any Corsair products before, with the exception of my headset, which I actually bought a month ago, which is this one here. This is the Corsair Gaming H2100 headset, which is the wireless version. And I don't use the microphone on this to record, by the way. I do actually have a studio mic, which is why my audio quality has always been pretty good. But the headphones that I was using prior to this was the Logitech G930s, which again was the top-end wireless version that Logitech did. The sound quality on them was brilliant. Again, it was Virtual 7.1. I'd had them for years and they had a couple of problems. First of all, they had those sort of fake leatherette pads, which disintegrated after about a couple of years. Although I did manage to get some replacements from China via Amazon that were like a couple of dollars, so that was not too bad. Then the leatherette on the inner head strap was starting to fade away as well, so that was a little bit of a problem. But the main issue I had with them, first of all, I had them 3 years, and the battery life was not what it used to be. Those headphones were used every day for like 3 years, and sometimes they'd be used as much as 8 hours a day. The battery life used to be 10 hours, and by the time I'd come to stop using them, I think it was down to something like about, I don't know, 3 hours. I was having to charge them up every night, essentially. So I decided it was a time to replace those. And also the thing that really upset me about those is, even though I don't use the microphone for YouTube, I do use it for voice communication in-game. And on the Logitech G930s, the microphone is actually limited, because it's the wireless version, the microphone is limited to 1100 kilohertz, which is basically telephone quality. So the microphone sounded really, really poor. The microphone on this one you can set to 44 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz, which is CD quality or DVD quality. So that was a good set, and I've actually really enjoyed these. They're very comfortable. They gave me a little bit of a headache when I first started wearing them, because they've got, you know, like most new headsets, they're quite tight on your ears when you first use them. So they were a little bit uncomfortable when I first got them. It gave me a bit of a headache. But now that I've broken them in, I really, really like them. They're well made, they're good quality, and I thought, brilliant, I'll look at another Corsair product. So I've been looking at mice, and I decided I was going to pick up the Corsair Vengeance M95. It's a bit of an older model. Don't think they make this anymore, but I did manage to get a discount on it, because it is basically a clearance model. Really, really nice mouse. It's brand new. I've literally just picked it up from the store. I've been back home literally 15 minutes. This video's now run for 9 minutes, and the other 6 minutes was me setting the camera up and hitting record. So I've literally walked in the door and decided, you know what, I'm going to share me opening up this up with you guys. So got myself a scalpel here, because this was purchased from Spitcough, PC World Spitcough, and it's got lots of these security tape measure things all over it, which make it almost impossible to get into them. So I'm just going to go through with my knife and just carve the box up, just to make sure that we can actually get into it. Now, because I don't normally do these sort of unboxes, I mean, luckily I do still have a high-definition video camera, even though I don't have a webcam, so I can still record things like this, but it's a little bit difficult to put it in a position where it's easy to see. So, there we go. So, let's work out how we get into this box, because it looks like it's quite elaborate. It seems to open up the side there. There we go. It's got a nice little... I think that's magnetic, actually. Yeah, it's got a nice little magnetic clasp on the side of the box. That opens up there, and you can see the mouse. Let's just... sort of offer it up to the camera so you can see it a little bit better, although you can see my room because it's really, really shiny and reflective. So let us go ahead and actually get to the business end of the mouse, because the box isn't the exciting bit, it's what's inside. So let's go ahead and get that out of there. Not one of the worst packed mice I've ever seen. Some of them have a terrible amount of extra packaging, although it's nice that it has been relatively well protected. It seems like it's a bit of a logic puzzle to get in there. So we've got our little instruction manual, which we'll probably read later if we're bored. It's actually nice. I always like to just have a quick look through the front of these things, because they do give you a nice little list that just shows you what all of the buttons are on there. Although it's not very helpful on this particular page, because all it basically says is button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. DPI up and DPI down. Now, they are actually E and F. So on this one, the DPI buttons are actually the two buttons next to the left click. They're not the button behind the scroll wheel. So let's have a look at this one. It's got a braided cable again, like my Rat 7, which is quite nice because I do like braided cables. So that's a good thing. Another thing I like about this mouse is that if you actually save game profiles on it, because it'll store up to 6 profiles, but the profiles are actually stored on the mouse themselves, on an internal ROM chip, as opposed to in the software. So if you set up a particular, if you set up a game profile on the mouse, and then unplug the mouse and take it and use it on another computer somewhere else, it actually stores all of your profile settings on the mouse itself, which I think is really, really cool. Although not that useful for me, because I generally don't ever take my mouse anywhere. It stays connected to my PC. So it's got a nice aluminium base. Really, really solid construction. It's got 4 big glide pads on there, which seem to be really well glued on, unlike the ones that are on the Rat 7 that are just tiny little feet that came unstuck quite quickly. It does get quite hot in this room because, one, there's a lot of equipment running, and secondly, the window has to be closed most of the time when I'm recording. So that's got quite a good glide on there. It's a decent sized mouse. It is about the same weight as my Rat 7, even though that has all the weights in it as well, though this isn't weight adjustable. A lot of people have made little complaints about the fact that the right click button is a little bit shorter than the left button, and I think the main concern is people who have larger hands may find that their finger sort of slides off it, although for me, that sort of fits my hand perfectly. That is a very, very comfortable fit. I did manage to sort of try one in the store. They did have one sort of on display that I could put my hand on just to sort of, you know, get a feel for it, and I quite like that. So the DPI settings are actually here on the fingertip, which is quite easy, then easy enough to get to. We've got the scroll wheel. It doesn't really have a sort of a... There is definitely a bit of resistance as it hits the different notches on the wheel. I can feel them. I don't know how well you can see on the video, but it certainly stops as I roll. The click action feels quite good. So do the buttons. The buttons are rated for 20 million clicks, so that'll probably last me about, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. Got another button here on the back. Not too sure what this button is actually for. It's just down in the instructions as button 4, so maybe it's just a 4th button. But one of the great things about this mouse that I really like about it is it has a whole slew of extra buttons along the side here. You probably can't see them too well. I'll try and put that in the right place in front of the camera. And there we go. The camera's now focused on it now. Also need to remember to stop moving away from the microphone when I do this. But as you can see, it's got quite a lot of buttons on there. Each one of these individual sections is an individual button. And these are all programmable via the software. So there's an awful lot of customization there, mainly for use in things like strategy games, RTS games, so you can macro things up. I guess it would also be useful for things in MMOs, where maybe you could, you know, assign different abilities and spells and items to different keys on the mouse. But I actually quite like that. That's the mouse from the front. So this is what I'm going to be using in future, and I'll let you guys know, if you're interested, of course, leave it in the comments below if you're actually interested, and I can let you guys know how I get on with this mouse and what I actually think to it, because I haven't actually used it yet. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fine as far as mice go. It's certainly going to do a better job than my current Rat 7, because I'm sure that is on its last legs. But a new mouse was definitely called for, and this is the one that I've decided to go for. So if you are interested to know how this mouse has worked out for me. Leave it in the comments below. Give me a couple of weeks, because obviously I need to use it for a little bit before I can really make up my mind on, you know, how decent it is as a mouse, and I'll let you guys know my impressions on it. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will see you on the next video, and until then, goodbye for now.